My fascination with Mount Kilimanjaro began about 15 years ago, and finally I was there on the mountain living out this dream. But before we get actually onto the mountain, let me back up just a little bit to how I got there in the first place. Okay, so this is my first installment of my video, I guess you could say. I'm about 3 days away from leaving for my trip to Kilimanjaro, and I am feeling a little bit nervous, but also I'm feeling ready to take this journey by myself. Right now I'm all packed. I have everything that I need, everything that was suggested to bring with me, and pretty much all I have to do is get on that plane and leave. So I want to kind of start with why I chose to take this trip in the first place. About 5 years ago, Marcus, my husband, was diagnosed with leukemia, and it was a very difficult time in our lives. We didn't really know what to do. I mean, we were kind of lost. Of course, you never expect that this will happen, at this age. We had a 4-year-old, and I was also pregnant at the time, and it just came as a complete shock, as a cancer diagnosis usually does. And we didn't really know what was going to happen next. So we went through quite a bit, but at this point, he's doing a lot better. We prayed and prayed and prayed. At that point, other people prayed for us, and eventually he's better. He's on a form of oral chemo that keeps him to where he's able to have a pretty normal life. He works out now, he's feeling good, loves spending time with our kids, so it's been good. During that time, though, that he was in the hospital, I also had a miscarriage, and that was, of course, difficult for us. But about a year later, I ended up having our daughter, Ivy, and she's perfect and she's beautiful. So that's everything that came out of that. Despite what we went through, we've been very blessed since then, and so I wanted to really kind of give back and bring attention to the cause of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, because they are who funded the research for the chemo medication that he's on that's keeping him healthy at this point. So how do the leukemia and Kilimanjaro, where do they match, or where do they come in, is that I'd always kind of had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I'd seen some type of billboard or advertisement for it when I first moved to Dallas, and it was something that I felt like, could I do that? Maybe one day. I researched it at the time, and it was something that I, at the time, definitely couldn't afford to do, but it was kind of in the back of my mind. So maybe once a year I would look up things about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And so this past summer, I looked it up again, just out of curiosity, and I saw that the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society was doing a trip to Mount Kilimanjaro. And since that was the society that really helped the funding of the medication Marcus is on, I thought, God, this is you telling me that it's my time to climb this mountain. So I made some phone calls and some inquiries, and I ended up, things just kind of ended up falling into place from there. Once I was on Emirates airline, I started to actually feel like I was traveling to another country. The food was different. It was ethnic food. A lot of it was Indian food with those flavors that I really enjoy. And as much as most people hate airline food, I was enjoying it quite a bit because I was just trying to take in every part of the whole experience. Final plane to Kilimanjaro. Made it. Okay, so I finally made it to the hotel, and it is, I don't even know what time it is right now. Let me check. It is 10:42 p.m. and I think that jet lag has finally caught up with me because I'm very, very tired and ready to go to sleep, but I wanted to show my room. I'm staying at the Bristol Cottage Inn, and it's pretty nice. It has mosquito nets up here. I don't know if that's for practical use or just for show. Here's the bathroom, shower, which I'm about to do because I have 3 days of filth, I guess, on me. So that is my first priority, is to get clean. So today was definitely a busy day, an exhausting day, and I don't know what to say about today, but I'm here and I'm safe. I just went and got some samosas at the restaurant that's here, and I also got a glass of red wine because I need to calm my nerves. And I'm about to take a shower and go to sleep for the first time in like 3 days. Hopefully I'll be able to actually get a good night's sleep. I think I've had a total of 4 hours sleep in the last 3 days, so it's probably time for me to be feeling like this, and I'm feeling it bad. So I will give another update later. So it is Sunday morning at 5:16 a.m. and I was woken up. If you can hear that, that's the call to prayer. So last night I actually didn't sleep very well, I guess. Kind of fitful, and of course I had to have my TV on. I can't really sleep without the TV. But also I woke up in the middle of the night, probably about 2 o'clock or so, with, I guess, what you would call a panic attack. I've never had one before, so I'm assuming that's what it was, but I kind of was like, it kind of felt like hard to breathe, kind of hyperventilating, but I think just the fact that I'm here kind of put me into a different state, or maybe it's the malaria medication because it does have certain side effects, but I guess you just wake up before you realize where you are. You're just assuming to be in your own bed, and then I woke up and I look around and I'm here, and I realized where I was and what I was about to do, and I just started panicking. I got up and started walking around a little bit and kind of told myself, this was all part of the plan, and I calmed down and I was able to go back to sleep, but that was just kind of strange. But I slept better than I have the last few nights, so I don't know, like I said, it's about, when I say the time it is, it's 5 something. I don't really have to wake up till 8, so hopefully I can go back to sleep for a little while. And that is it. Alright, so here's my first look outside of my hotel room in the morning. And I'm about to go find breakfast. It's like another hiking. Alright, so this is the first meeting of, what do we call it?
Kilimanjaro climb?
Kilimanjaro LLS climb. Yay! Alright, we are on our way into town on Sunday morning. They did a gear check and some of us need extra things that we didn't have, including me. I didn't have my rain gear, so we're on our way into town.
Oh no, I hope you weren't GoProing that. You might just delete an F-bomb. Sorry.
We're in the marketplace and just looking around at the things that they have. Alright, so I am at the end of day 2, and this day was pretty eventful. We had this morning I went to breakfast and I met all of the people that I'm going to be climbing with, and they seem like really nice people. I think it's going to be a really good group. We also were able to go out to the city of Moshi and get a couple things that we needed. I was able to get a SIM card from my phone, and I was able to call Marcus today. So that was the first time I was able to call home since I left on Thursday. Today is Sunday, by the way. So we ended up going out, having lunch, and coming back to the hotel. And the other girls in the group liked my hair so much that they wanted to get theirs braided too. So they arranged for 2 braiders to come, and they braided their hair so that they won't have to mess with it while we're on the trail. So I also found out who my tent mate is going to be, and she is a doctor, which is going to make my parents and my family feel a lot better about me even being here. So that was also another thing that God has put in place for me, I'm sure. It's kind of late now. I didn't mean to be up this late, but in the morning we're going to get up and we'll go to the gate that's at the base of the mountain, and that's about a 2.5 hour drive, and we'll sign in and get all settled, and we'll start up the mountain tomorrow afternoon. And by tomorrow evening we should be at the camp, and we should be eating our dinner at the camp. So tomorrow's when everything really begins, and I'm gonna get some sleep so that I'll be nice and rested for our big the start of our big climb tomorrow. That's it for today.
I still had to find my camera.
Almost there. All right, so we just got to the park gate, and it took us about 2.5 hours to get here from the town of Moshi, and we're just kind of around here figuring out what's the next thing to do. I think we're going to have a little bit of lunch, and then we will start on our hike. Our next meal, I guess, will be up on the mountain, but if you can see, there's a lot of staff around, and some of them are porters, some of them are cook and wait staff, and I guess we'll find out soon who the crew is that's going with us. This is the Kilimanjaro sign that tells us that we're at the Kilimanjaro Park, and we'll be leaving from here, like I said, to start walking. So I'll look to the other side of the sign, and it just says, wishing you a nice climb. So wishing us a nice climb. Same wish I have. All right, taking my first steps onto the trail up the mountain.
Yeah, I can do this.
Everybody wave.
Like 30
1 hour and 5 minutes. Okay, 1 hour and 5 minutes into the hike. Beautiful, beautiful scenery.
It's very
We made it to the first camp. Day 1. Once we made it to the first camp on day one, the porters and the wait staff and all of the crew was already there, and they were waiting for us. They were celebrating for us, and at this point I was just so happy because it all just seemed to be coming together so well. I was actually here. They were there to support us, and it was a great beginning of the journey because it was just so much joy. It was joy in them, it was joy in us, and we were all coming together.
Alright, so once we got to camp, we were able to pick a tent and start setting up, and then they washed our hands and they had this nice snack set up for us. Popcorn, ginger cookies, tea, and coffee. So I guess we're just gonna hang out in here until they start dinner.
Good bready. Garlic bread.
The first meal on the first night was garlic bread and pasta carbonara, which was a pretty fancy meal to be up on a mountain somewhere. So it looked so good, but the pasta had a bunch of meat in it, so I knew I wouldn't be able to eat it. But then almost immediately after they brought it out, they said, "Where is Yasmeen?" And then they brought me this different pasta that was just basically noodles and vegetables, but it was very seasoned and very good. And I was just like, wow, I was so impressed that even, you know, up here on this mountain that they were tending to my specific dietary needs. And that was a good feeling to realize that they were taking care of me very, very well. Thank you. What day is it? Day two. Day two. Tuesday. And I'm getting my vital signs. And speaking of taking good care of us, they actually checked our vital signs twice a day, once in the morning after breakfast and once in the evening before dinner. So each day you would just hope that your oxygen level was good and that your blood pressure was good so that you could continue the journey.
Isn't that good?
Yeah, good.
It's good. Okay.
Fast.
Alright.
So pretty around here. Almost. Very close to the top. No. Was this our second pit stop of the day?
Yeah,
Second break. One more hour till lunch. Up in the clouds. This is the point at which we were passing through the cloud layer, and I remember one of us saying, "Oh, it got really foggy outside," and then someone else said, "Clouds? No, we're up in the clouds. We're passing through the cloud layer." So it was pretty amazing to look around and realize that we were that high up, that we were passing through the clouds. I've never been up in the clouds before, but it's nice. Nice and cool.
Yeah.
About 60 degrees.
This reminds me of the movie Gorillas and I really don't really know.
Oh,
up down.
Yeah, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Day 2 was very difficult for me, and I know it was difficult for a lot of us, but this was the day that I started realizing that I was going to be one of the weaker hikers. When I looked back at the videos, I realized how much I was having difficulty breathing, And at the time, I think it's just you're in survival mode, so you don't pay attention to those things. But when I was the last person to arrive at the lunch stop, I realized that it wasn't going to be an easy climb for me at all. I felt like I was in shape, but compared to the people that I was hiking with, I was not. And through conversations, I realized that I probably was the least prepared for this. And but now here I was, and there was no turning back. So I was going to have to struggle through it, which I did.
Taking a little break, eating my peanut butter.
And if it is, I don't care. I'm almost covered up.
Get some energy.
I've got my cat. My people.
It's been a hard day so far, and it's
Your people.
not even halfway over.
Wow.
My people just simmer.
are confused.
All right, so we finally made it to our lunch spot. So that means we're halfway done with the hike for today. And the last about hour was very difficult after our break. I had to get some help getting up here. I don't know what hit me or why, but it was very hard for me to breathe. I probably shouldn't have ate that peanut butter because it kind of felt really heavy in my stomach and in my throat. It kind of created like this thickness in my throat that was difficult to get past. So I probably won't be doing that anymore. But if you look at this view, it kind of takes away all the bad feelings because I am above the clouds on Mount Kilimanjaro, and I'm actually halfway to the top. So I think that getting through that last little part probably gave me a little bit of confidence that even though I might have to go slowly, that I can finish. I'm not sure if you can see it okay, but right behind me is the peak of Mount Kilimanjaro, and we should be there in about 6 days. Today was hard. It was 6.5 hours of hiking. Most of it was uphill. It was the first day that the altitude really got different from what we're used to, so it was a lot of panting and having to stop and catch my breath and having to really pay attention to my body and when I needed to take a break. So in the end, obviously we made it to camp, and we're at Baramfu Camp. I think that's what it's called, Baramfu Camp 1, and this is what it looks like. It's a pretty big camp. This mountain over here is where we hiked from. Right now it's kind of covered by the clouds. We're that high that we're in the clouds, so I can't really say, you know, that the fog is going to go away because we are up in the clouds. So we just got to camp and we are about to eat a snack, and after that we'll eat dinner. The food here has been so good. I just can't understand how they can cook like this on a mountain and carry all these things up here to make these great gourmet meals that they've been making for us. So I'm very impressed. And you know, even though today was hard, I know that it did definitely give me some more strength and some more confidence, because if I was able to get through this day and still feel okay, then I know I have a lot ahead of me that's going to be harder, but I think I can get through it, just little by little, pole pole, as they say, slowly slowly. So I'm about to join my group in the mess tent and eat some popcorn and cookies and drink some hot tea, and that's pretty much the end of day 2. At this camp, the elevation is, I think they said
11,600 or something like that. I know that we're more than halfway up. So we're pretty high up, and I'm still feeling pretty good. Not really sick from the altitude, so feeling good. And I've been taking the Diamox, which is the altitude sickness pill, and everybody here is taking it. It just helps with nausea and vomiting and all the things that go along with altitude sickness, but it also makes you have to go to the bathroom a lot. So I have a real issue with going on the trail, and so I always try to hold it until we get to the next camp. Not always successful, but I cut down on my tea consumption, just 1 glass in the morning and 1 glass in the evening, because I also don't like getting out of my warm tent and going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, which I had to do last night. So I'm learning little things here and there to make sure that I'm comfortable and that, you know, I can still maintain my dignity while I'm out here on this trail. So breathing a little bit hard. The air is a little thin up here, but my body still has to adjust to the altitude, and it will. So it's still going well. I still feel good. My back feels good. Of course my feet are a little sore, but after some rest tonight and kind of rubbing them, I'm sure they'll be fine. The temperature here is about 40 degrees or so. It feels very cold, but not unbearable. I have much colder days ahead, so I can't complain yet. But so yes, things are going well, and about to go get some munchies. And after that, after dinner, I'm just gonna call it a night. Get a good night's rest, hopefully. All right. All right, so now the clouds have finally cleared, and we can see the top of Mount Kilimanjaro from where we are. And it's right there. That's where we'll be in about 6 days. And fish.
Can I take your picture, guys?
Yes.
You don't have to pose, but. Okay. Yeah, with your plate.
Okay.
Okay, ready? 1, 2. Oh, where's the flash? Hold on. Sorry. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Very good. Morning on the mountain, and there it is off in the distance. Here's our crew, breakfast tent, and all of us getting ready to head out. Toilet tent. Here comes the mountain in the back. Waking up to this was definitely a once in a lifetime experience. You just compare it to being at home, and you know, you roll over when your alarm clock goes off, and grudgingly you get out of bed to go to work. But on these mornings, it just gave a whole new definition to morning, and they just did everything they possibly could to get us up and get us ready to start the hike for the day. And just being in the midst of all these wonderful people who were there just for you, just to help you along, just to make sure that you were successful in reaching your goal was so encouraging. And that's something that I'll never forget.
Ayo mama, wageni wananilia mlima, wacha wakaone wenyewe, wacha wakaone wenyewe.
After all of that singing and dancing, the porters packed up all of our gear, all of our tents, all of the food, and they headed up the mountain before us so that they could be there at the next camp to set up. And how could we complain about being tired when they had just sang and danced and had all of our gear on their back? But of course, in my private moments, I did still find time to complain about how tired I was. And looking back, I just feel so silly about that. Right now, I'm incredibly tired. We hiked 5 hours, and now we have to go on another 2-hour hike just to help us acclimatize to the altitude. And I can tell I'm breathing heavier, and I'm just so tired. So I'm slowly getting myself together to get out of my tent so that I can join everyone else. I'm going to take some ibuprofen and hopefully that'll help. So this is what it looks like to be above the clouds. Mountains coming up out of the clouds. We're at a rest break right now. This is our acclimatization stop. And a little bit closer to the mountain right there, or the peak rather, because we're on the mountain. Very nice. It's evening. We just have to climb back down an hour. It wasn't so bad. Wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. It's getting a little bit chilly, but not too bad. I'm sure tonight will be cold. Last night was freezing, and we're even higher up, so I'm sure tonight will be cold, but not as cold as it will be the next few nights. Every night's a little bit colder, so I try not to complain about the night before, and just kind of appreciate everything around me, because this is beautiful. It's the morning of the 4th day, and we are at Shria 2 camp, and if you can see, we are way above the clouds. It's quite amazing to be all the way up here with the birds and realize that this is really their domain, and they're probably wondering why we're way up here. But I slept pretty well last night, considering. Here's Kilimanjaro, the top of it, just waiting for us to make it. It looks like there's quite a bit of snow up there. I didn't bring the spikes for my shoes, so hopefully that won't stop me too much. There. Oh.
Yeah, it's taking a video.
Oh shoot, I didn't finish that.
Alright, so it is the end of day 4, and we are at Barranco Camp. Down there you can see the clouds. They're about to get dinner ready for us. Today was another challenging one, especially that second part after we ate lunch at Lava Tower. It was a lot of up and down these cliffs, a lot of rocks that were kind of shifting, and I wasn't a lot of times able to, get a good grip. So the guides helped me a lot to be able to get down here. But I made it, and so there's another day of me saying, at least I made it. Right now I'm feeling good. I'm hungry, which is a good sign. I still have an appetite, and we are just about to kind of get settled in for the night. I'm going to try to make a phone call. This is a camp where we have cell phone service, so I'm going to try to call home and see if I can get some.
I'm like the sauce queen. Or just go in. Like, I don't like it. Do you want me to empty this? No. You can empty it back. Just a little bit.
Okay. Welcome.
So we have just climbed up this part of the mountain. Now we're pretty close to the top, I think. You can see the people down there. And way over there with the green roof, that's the camp we came from this morning. So we climbed all the way up. And it was very scary. And I think we're almost at the top. We just finished climbing up the wall. It took a few hours. I'm estimating maybe 3 hours. So now we're at the top. Not the very top, but we're at the top of this part. And kind of having a little break. There's a lot of different groups up here. And you can also see how far above the clouds we are. And the best part is that we can see the top of the mountain. So, another hard part of the day, but got through it again. And I can't think of anything more awesome right now than being right here. Let me tell you about today. Today, we hiked up this area of the mountain called the Barranco Wall. And I promise you, my allergies did not go away on the mountain, by the way. I promise you, I think I almost died. I think that's the closest I've ever been to feeling like I was going to die. And it was absolutely terrifying. It was basically the side of the mountain. It went almost straight up, and you had to climb it just like you would at like a rock climbing wall. But you didn't have a harness. You didn't have someone pulling on the rope to make sure that if you did fall, you were caught. I was so scared. Like, that's the most scared I've been this entire trip. And I definitely celebrated when I got to the top, because I don't know how I did that. And I don't know. It's hard to describe the feeling of feeling like if I make one wrong step, or if I step on a rock that's loose, or if I slip, that's it. And what I think got me through it at a certain point was that I was like, okay, I'm up so high, I'm past the point of, you know, if I fall from here, I'm gonna die. Well, the higher up I go, whatever point I fall from, I'm gonna die. So it was just kind of inevitable. So I mustered up every bit of strength that I had, and I made it up that wall. The rest of the hike was not as scary, but it wasn't easy either. It was a lot of ups and downs to the camp that we're at now, called, I don't even remember, honestly. I was just happy to see the camp off in the distance once we got there. So we got here, we ate lunch. It was veggie pizza and of course soup. And my tent mate went on. It was an optional hike that you could go to help your body to adjust to the altitude, but I had no energy and I did not go. So I was able to take a what you can describe as maybe a mountain bath, and I used this little
lay there.
This
and
nasty water you see right
guess
there.
what I found?
I was able to be in my tent by myself and completely unclothed for the first time, and take my little mountain bath. So right now I'm kind of feeling like a brand new person. I got really, really dirty today, to the point where I could smell myself. And usually I'll be like, oh, do I smell? And I'll kind of sniff and I'm like, I'm fine, I'm fine. Today, it was bad. And I was like embarrassed to be around anybody. But I was able to get my little mountain bath in. And did you see that dirty water? There's the close up. Yeah. That is how many days? This is day 5, I think. That's 5 days of filth. Every night I've been like wiping down my feet and everything, but I haven't been able to like truly completely get clean. Now I feel like I'm pretty clean. I have on semi-clean clothes. I think I only wore this shirt once. So it's kind of crazy the adjustments you have to make up here. But anyway, I just wanted to tell y'all how treacherous today was and how difficult it was. And I've just gotten to the point where it's like I'm not even going to ask questions about what's coming the next day, because they usually say, oh, tomorrow's easy, and each day is harder than the day before. So I know they do it to try to make you, give you some confidence that you can do it, and that's probably what they need to do out here. So I get it, and then I'm not knocking it, but man, I wish I would have been prepared for that wall and that climb today, because it was, I don't even know what words to describe it. It was the most dangerous thing I've ever done, and I will never do anything like that again. I don't know how it is going to be at the summit. I don't know if it's going to be that steep, but if it is, I don't know. I hope I get up and back down safely. I see why my parents and everybody were worried now, because they promised me a slow trail hike. That's what I signed up for, not scaling the side of the mountain. So I don't know. I don't know where that came from, but yeah, so that was today. But nothing else today but rest. I'm resting in my tent today. I didn't go on the optional hike. Hopefully my body still adjusts pretty well. And I'm fine physically, really. My back is a little bit sore, but not as sore as it could be. My ankles are a little sore just because of all the ups and downs and, trying to catch yourself every time you slip. And my knees hurt a little bit, which is different. But it's a lot of pounding, on the knees, and you definitely feel that. So that's about it. Dinner, and then I think they're going to do some dancing, which will be nice, and then I'm going to get back and sleep. So tomorrow, I'm sure, will be harder than today. And that's it for the present.
Today we have mixed canned food. We have rice, we have a guacamole, we have a tortilla with tortilla and quesadilla. This salad and beans with the cheese.
Yes.
Okay, guys, you are welcome.
Thank you so much.
Sante sana.
Okay, so this is the last night before summit night. Tonight we get up at 12 a.m. and we start our climb to the summit. And I guess I'm feeling quite a few emotions right now, but the most one is I'm very nervous and a little terrified. But I feel good. How are you? Good. I feel through, 5-6 days of hiking was to get to this point. And so I'm trying not to allow the negative thinking to stop me from doing what I need to do. But I can't deny the fact that I'm scared. At this altitude, it's even harder to breathe. I thought it was hard to breathe before, but it's even harder now. Here you can see the clouds out there. And hopefully I'm showing the mountain behind me. But I'm sore, I'm cold, I'm tired. We're not going to get much sleep tonight before we start. I'll get there. I'm going to pray myself through it. And the guides have been great, so hopefully they won't let me stop even if I want to. And I'll make it, and I'll be able to say that I did. So it's been quite the journey. And right now, as we're nearing the final point, I'm just really in prayer that I can make it the rest of this week, because I'm starting to wear down quite a bit. That's it.
I think a good time for us to wake up would be 10, and after you wake up, we're gonna give you half an hour to dress up, and then you have to come here in this tent for a light breakfast before we leave, because our target is to leave here at 11. It may take us like 6-7 hours to be there, and sometime more, but the plan for us to leave earlier is to have more rooms of time, so just in case of maybe someone is slow, or in case of anything, we can have more time to fix it, and still we can make it in a good time there.
I don't know who would be slow. Certainly not me.
It's like, on the way to the top, no one is like running or walking fast. Everyone is like very slow on the pace. And the good idea is to walk slow, but in a long distance, because if you brake every time, it's easy to get to freeze.
Sunset on top of the clouds. Summit night. Summit night was hard to put into words. In fact, I made a whole separate video detailing that experience. It was beyond strange. It began with us climbing through this loose red dirt until we got to the steep switchback that would lead us to the top. It was pitch black, and you could only see as far as your headlamp would allow you to see. At first, there was a huge crowd of people, so big that we were like tripping over each other. And when you looked up, all you could see was an endless string of headlamps, kind of like lights on a Christmas tree. After a few hours, the crowd thinned out. That was either because they had turned back, or more likely they had passed me because I was going at a snail's pace. It was like being placed in a freezer until you were frozen solid, and then being told to move, and climb no less. It was an impossible task. I honestly only remember the first few hours, but I know that at one point I was convinced that my toes had detached from my body and that they were rolling around in my boots. I screamed out in pain, but there were no tears. My body was too dehydrated to produce them, and my water had frozen. All logic was gone because hypothermia had taken over. I blacked out, but somehow I kept climbing. See, I told you it was very strange.
Just made it to Stella Point.
At this point in the video, all I can see on my face is complete disappointment. I had made it to the first summit, which is called Stella Point, and a lot of people just stop at Stella Point because technically you have climbed Mount Kilimanjaro if you made it to Stella Point, but it is not the highest peak of the mountain. The highest peak is Uhuru Peak, and I really wanted to make it there. But since my group had been long gone and it was just me and my one guide left, he didn't think it was a good choice for me to keep going. But I was so determined to make it to that highest point that I just begged and begged, and I promised that I could make it, and I asked him to just let me try. And once he agreed to let me try, I knew that I would make it the whole way. I had come too far by this time.
All right, so I finally arrived at the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. It took me 8 hours and 10 minutes, but I am here. Very cold and very tired and very sore. And I was the last one to arrive by about an hour, but I refused to turn back or to give up because I'm doing this for you, Marcus. We have to keep fighting. I'm doing this for Jackson and Ivy to show you that it doesn't matter if you're the last one to accomplish the goal. If you set out for a goal and you accomplish it, then that's enough in itself. I also want to do this for my parents and my sister, and also every kid that I've ever taught or ever will teach. I always say to never give up. And I never ever wanted any of you to ever give up, because it was hard. And I wanted to turn back so many times, but I didn't. And now here I am at the tallest point of Africa. And it's absolutely beautiful. More beautiful than words can describe. So Marcus, Jackson, Ivy, Mom, Dad, I hope that you're proud.
Okay, so I had been all smiles at the top of the mountain, but little did I know that would not be the hardest part at all. The hardest part would be getting down from the summit, and that was because my knees were so swollen that they felt like they were going to burst. Like, in my mind, I imagined that my tendons and my muscles would just be splattered all over the side of the mountain, and that I would just be standing there with no knees. That's how painful it was. So it took me even longer to get down the mountain than it did for me to get up to the peak, if that's even possible. And to the point where I was told that once I did get down to the base camp, that they would have to put me on a gurney to get to the next camp. So that's what this is. This was the gurney that they put me on, and it was so nice. They put me on this gurney with my air mattress and my sleeping bag, and while they were carrying me, I actually fell asleep, and I just peeked up a couple times just to see where we were and what was going on, but I completely trusted them, and I knew that, you know, they wouldn't let me fall off the side of the mountain or anything, even though it felt like I would a couple times. I, at this point, trusted them so much that I slept right through most of that 4-hour gurney ride down to the next camp.
To the gate, and we are all done with our trek. I see it. Congratulations.
That's on the party.
Thank you. Sometimes hard to keep up the fight. I will climb the ancient mountain. I will find the last flicker of the light. I'm sitting on the top of Kilimanjaro. Oh yeah, I can see a new tomorrow. I'm sitting on the top of Kilimanjaro. Oh yeah, I cast away all my sorrow. What a strange, strange freedom. Only free to choose my chains. So hard not to weaken. Just give up and walk away. I will climb the ancient mountain. I will find the last flicker of the light. I'm sitting on the top of Kilimanjaro. I can see a new tomorrow. I'm sitting on the top of Kilimanjaro. I cast away all my sorrow. I'm sitting on the top of Kilimanjaro. It thrills me right down to the marrow. I'm sitting on the top of Kilimanjaro. I can see a new tomorrow. I'm sitting on the top of Kilimanjaro. 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 Sitting on the top of Kilimanjaro.
Habari gani? Nzuri sana. Wageni wakaribishwa Kilimanjaro. Hakuna matata. Hakuna matata. Hakuna matata. Hakuna matata. Hakuna matata.
Jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana. Wageni wakaribishwa Kenya yetu, hakuna matata. Jambo.
What you're seeing now is the celebration that the crew had set up for us at the end of our climb. And as tired as we were and as sore as we were, we still got out there and we sang and we danced as much as we could. It was such a happy time because it was truly a celebration of a huge accomplishment. I'm going to take this time to introduce you to my fellow climbers, and I also want to give them credit for the photos that you saw throughout this video. They were nice enough to send me their photos for me to add to this video, and I really appreciate that. First, I'll introduce Gabby and Angela. They were both teachers from New York, and Gabby was so hilarious to me. She always made a joke out of everything, and no matter how sore or how tired we were, she was able to make us laugh. Angela actually reached out to me after we got home and told me that it really meant a lot to her that I was a witness to God's work while we were on the mountain. And I hadn't necessarily set out to do that, but I was really glad that she was able to see that in me, and it meant so much to me that she remembered when I prayed over us and when I would reference things that had happened and attribute that to God. Roxy was the glamorous attorney from California, and what stood out most to me about Roxy was that her voice was always so sweet and calming, and that everything that she said was very encouraging. She also had these beautiful eyelashes that made it look like she had a face full of makeup on at all times.
Roxy was just positivity enveloped into a person. Eddie was the young college student from Cleveland, Ohio, and because I'm also originally from Cleveland, we had that in common. Eddie was very mature beyond his years, and he was totally comfortable being the youngest out of all of us and also only one of 2 males. We joked that he must have been some type of rock model because every time we stopped at a rest stop, he would perch himself up on a rock and he would just look like he belonged on the cover of a magazine. He was a really cool guy. Karen and Kelly were a mother and daughter pair, and they just had the sweetest relationship. They had the kind of relationship that mothers and daughters want to have in their adult years. Karen and I were buddies because we were usually the last 2 to arrive at the stops. We struggled a lot. And Karen actually didn't make it with us to the summit. She turned back about halfway up. And the last thing that I remember from the group was actually seeing Kelly crying because she found out that her mother couldn't make it to the top. But once we got back down, it was very sweet because Karen was just concerned that her daughter had made it, and she was so proud of her that it seemed like it didn't even matter so much. Tony and Kate were a married couple from Nebraska. Tony was the Man of the Year for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society for 2018, which meant that he had raised more money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society than anyone else in the United States. I'll admit that when I first met them, I was worried about whether or not they would make it to the top, but I was 100% wrong about them. They were more in shape than any of us, and they were leading the pack every time. Sandy was my doctor tent mate from San Antonio, and what a blessing she was. Not only was she a huge wealth of knowledge, but she also had a lot of tips about how to survive out in the wilderness. She had also been in the military, and she had traveled so many places, and the places that she had traveled became places that I wanted to go just because of the way that she described them. So she was truly an inspiration. Samantha was the super fit marathon runner from South Florida, and she had trained harder than any of us, and she was probably more prepared than any of us to take this journey, but unfortunately she got hit pretty hard by altitude sickness on day 4 when we went to Lava Tower, and she had to turn back. And when we got back to Moshi and we talked, she just had such a positive attitude. Her attitude was that, she didn't reach this goal, but that just meant that she had to set another goal and go for that. And that really said a lot about her character, and I really respected that. Missy was the Ironman athlete from Louisville, Kentucky, and she was also a flight attendant, so she had that very outgoing personality. You could tell she was one of those people that was just very genuine and honest and just put it all out there with no pretense at all. Missy had kind of a medical emergency after her summit. She made it up to the top, but she had to be carried down on a gurney all the way to the base of the mountain because her lungs started filling up with fluid. And it could have been a very dangerous situation, but the hospital that was near our hotel took really good care of her, and she ended up being okay. So just a word to the wise, take the Diamox medication, it helps. And last we have me. I hope that I was a lot of things to the people that I was hiking with. I hope that I was definitely the face of the cause of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I think that I was the one that was the most closely affected by it, and their fundraising went toward families just like mine to help us through these difficult situations. And I also hope that I really was a witness on that mountain, and that they saw me praying, and that they saw me professing anytime that something great happened, that was because God was with me, because He definitely was. And I definitely know that He is the reason that I made it there and back safely, and that I'm now able to look back and tell this story, because to me, it's quite an amazing one.